ఇంటర్మీడియట్ విద్యా రంగంలో అగ్రగామి మన ఎన్ఎస్ఆర్ ఇంపల్స్ ఎడ్యుకేషన్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్. ఐఐటి జేఈఈ అయినా నీట్ అయినా తిరుగులేని విద్యా సంస్థ ఎన్ఎస్ఆర్ ఇంపల్స్.
Let us continue with root modifications. So you all understood what exactly meant by modification. What is modification? A permanent change in the shape of the structure of the root or stem to perform special functions called as what? Modifications. So for last class we studied about classification, and root modifications are divided into two categories. We studied what are they? We have studied about taproot modifications and adventitious root modifications. What are the two categories we studied? Taproot modifications and adventitious root modifications. So if you look at the taproot modifications, we already have studied first one. What is the first one we studied? Storage roots. What is the very first one we studied? Storage roots, which stores food material, are generally called as what? Storage roots. What are the best examples we studied for the last class, guys? What we studied? Conical shape, example is Daucus carota, carrot, and what you call fusiform, napiform if you take. What are the other two examples? Beta vulgaris, it's a scientific name for beetroot. Raphanus sativus, scientific name for radish. So all three examples we studied very clearly for the first category called storage roots, right? Let us continue the topic here. Now the second one under this we have to study called nodular roots. Nodular roots. Let us continue with what is called nodular roots. Then what are these nodular roots? Nodular roots most commonly we find in case of, I am writing examples here, are found in case of Fabaceae members. So the plants which belong to Fabaceae members, generally they are called as legumes. Now in these legumes generally we find the type of roots found in case of Fabaceae generally we call nodular roots. Then the moment if you look at Fabaceae, then you may ask a simple question, what are the plants we have to imagine for Fabaceae? Guys, it's very quite simple. The plants or the things what we make use of in kitchen, or the vegetables what we make use of them, some of the plants are generally they belong to the category called Fabaceae. Now which plants? I will let you know, do not worry, your known examples I will let you know. For example, we can take, if you remember in the table I am giving you every day the two plant scientific names. You are familiar with the example what I am going to write now. Try to get back to your mind what could be the common name for the scientific name what I am going to write. So I am going to write here Dolichos lablab. I am going to write here the scientific name Dolichos lablab. So guys, with full concentration you might have studied for the last class. Once you might have, if you can recollect it back. Guys, can you tell me what is this Dolichos lablab? It's a scientific name for, what is a common name? You know, most commonly used vegetable. What is that? We can say beans, right? So you know beans is fibrous, right? It is fiber content. Generally people will take beans, right? One of the commonly used vegetable. Next time whenever you are eating beans curry, or whenever you want to tell somebody that okay what is the curry held at your home, and your friends call you and ask you what is the curry today, what did you had your lunch, and if you want to say beans, definitely tell them as Dolichos lablab. But do not tell your mother that okay prepare and cook for me Dolichos lablab, because mother can't understand, okay. But you can talk to your own friends who are BPC, tell them that beans, scientific name of beans is nothing but what? Dolichos lablab. Start using scientific names in your daily part of life, then guys happily and wonderfully you can remember all the scientific names. Scientific names are very easy. What are they? What is that example I wrote? Dolichos lablab, beans, chikkudu, right? Beans we call, that belong to the family called Fabaceae. And I will give you one more example which is also known to you and you studied already in the table. What is that? we can say Arachis hypogea. Arachis hypogea. Guys, I think you already learned these things in the table. Can you tell me? We have studied in the table. I gave you scientific name, Arachis hypogea. The first scientific name we started writing, A, that is Arachis hypogea. Can you tell me what is Arachis hypogea? Exactly, maybe some people can remember and recollect it. What would be that? It is called groundnut. Yes or no, right? Groundnut. You know, groundnut is most commonly used in chutneys and making in vegetables and curries and all that, right? So, whenever you want to talk and whenever you want to speak about groundnut, whenever you want to talk about groundnut, start using the scientific name. What is that scientific name? Arachis hypogea. Okay, so when you are communicating with your friends, if you just got casual talk, oh I just want to eat groundnut, or I like groundnut chutney, whenever you want to say, then definitely start using the terminology called, in place of groundnut, guys, you just talk about Arachis hypogea. Then people may question you, what is Arachis hypogea? Tell them it's a scientific name for groundnut. Similarly, people may question you, what is that Dolichos you are talking about, Dolichos lab? Tell them Dolichos lab is a scientific name for beans. So, what you can do is happily, wonderfully in day-to-day part of life, when you speak to the others, happily you can enjoy in speaking and pronunciating and communicating scientific names of different plants. If you practice and when you are speaking, if you can use these terminologies very easily, you can remember in your young mind, right. So, here these two are the good examples. What are we discussing? They contain what? Nodular roots. Now, let us see about nodular roots. So, this is taproot, no? So, what I have to draw in the center? A thick woody root. What do you call? Primary root. When you say this is a taproot, must and should you have to look for the centermost one, what is called as taproot. Now, if you look at this nodular roots, on the lateral roots you can see formation of some nodules like this. Now, these are called as root nodules. These are called as what? Root nodules. So, here what are nodular roots here? Let me give you definition for nodular roots. It is very simple. So, here modified taproot. Modified taproot with bacterial root nodules. With bacterial root nodules. It's called as what? It's called nodular roots. What's the meaning of that? What are the things you have to look for, guys, here? Modified taproot. So, here it's a taproot modification, no doubt. Then what is the continuation of this? With bacterial root nodules. What's the meaning of this? You know, here on the root we find extended forms of the root we find. They are called root nodules. And why do we call bacterial root nodules? Because inside the root nodules we find bacteria. Inside the root nodules what we find is bacteria. Which bacterium is present? I hope you are understanding what we are discussing. In some of the roots of Fabaceae, we can see extension of the lateral root to form a structure called root nodule. I repeat, extension of the lateral root and form the structure called root nodules. These root nodules are called bacterial root nodules. Why do you call them as bacterial root nodules? Because they give shelter to, or they show symbiotic association with. So, lower classes, you are very much familiar with symbiotic association. So, here root nodules, they show symbiotic association with bacteria. Which bacteria? We can take Rhizobium. Very important. So, the place where I keep star marks, guys, it's very, very important. So, who is present inside? Root nodules are giving shelter to whom? They are giving shelter to a bacteria. Which bacteria? Rhizobium. What's the meaning of that? Rhizobium shows symbiotic association with root nodules, or we say root nodules show symbiotic association with rhizobium. First of all, if you can recollect it back, what exactly meant by symbiotic association? What's the meaning of symbiotic association? In lower classes you studied. It's an interaction between two organisms. This is one organism, this is another organism. When do you say both organisms are symbiotically associated? You know, mutualism, right? Symbiotic association. When do you call the symbiotic association exists between this organism and this organism? When do you say if both are benefited? This organism is benefited from this and this organism also benefited from this, then both we say both maintain what is called symbiotic association. Okay, both maintains what? Symbiotic association. Then how do you think root nodule will be benefited from rhizobium? Then how do you think rhizobium is benefited from root nodule? What is the benefit here? If there is no benefit, both will not associate together, obviously, right? So what is the benefit here? Now this rhizobium, I will repeat again, this rhizobium, I hope you got it up to here. What is that we have studied? Modified taproot with bacterial root nodules is called, what do we say? Nodular roots. Now if you look at on the root system, I am repeating here, carefully you observe, extensions of lateral root extend and form the structure called root nodule. Inside the root nodule you find the bacteria, that bacteria is rhizobium. So here root nodule, they show symbiotic association with rhizobium. That means both are mutually benefited. This is benefited from this. Similar way, rhizobium is also benefited from root nodule. How? Let us study that. Now if you look at, I am just drawing here one more root nodule here. Now this is nothing but root nodule. Yes, inside this thing exists what is called rhizobium. I will write again here. This is a root nodule. Inside the root nodule what you find? Many bacteria. Many bacteria. See here, if you look at here, this is rhizobium. Now what happens in this? Root nodule provides food and shelter. Food or nutrients along with the water. It supplies. Root nodule will give water, food and nutrients to rhizobium. Food or nutrients to rhizobium. In return, rhizobium will give nitrate or nitrite or ammonia. So root nodule requires nitrite and nitrate ammonia. Who will give that? Rhizobium. How rhizobium will give these all components? Why? Because rhizobium has wonderful ability in converting, it does the function called nitrogen fixation. It does the function called nitrogen fixation. What is nitrogen fixation here? The process of conversion of atmospheric nitrogen to nitrite, nitrate or ammonia. This process is said to be nitrogen fixation. So who will do that wonderful function? Rhizobium. I repeat again. Root nodule will give shelter to whom? Rhizobium. When it is giving rhizobium, imagine that some guest has come to root nodule. Some guest has come to our home. What do we give? We offer water. We offer some food. Food is nothing but nutrients. Okay. So when we offer some food, in return they are giving something to us and they may be going out, right? Similar way, here root nodule, inside the root nodule, who entered is rhizobium. So rhizobium is a guest for root nodule. So what root nodule will offer? It will give shelter to rhizobium by offering water, food and nutrients. In return, what rhizobium will do? Rhizobium will do wonderful function. What is that wonderful function? It converts, okay, it converts atmospheric nitrogen into nitrite, or nitrate or ammonia. This is nitrite, okay, or this is nitrate, and this you know ammonia. Okay, why it has to give it to the plant? Because plant cannot make use of atmospheric nitrogen directly, but plant is in need of very much large quantity of nitrogen. Plant cannot take atmospheric nitrogen directly. Atmosphere has lot of nitrogen, major component. Plant also requires large quantity of nitrogen, but plant cannot take nitrogen from the atmosphere. So, see our nature, how wonderful it is. In nature, especially if we talk about rhizobium, it is a bacteria we say. When you say it is a bacteria, can we see bacteria with our naked eye? No, it is difficult. It is invisible microorganism. If you take microscope, with the help of microscope you are seeing, then only you can see bacteria. Otherwise, it is difficult for you to see the bacteria. It is very, very invisible. It is a microscopic organism. Who is a microscopic organism? Who is a microorganism? Bacteria. Bacteria, it is a microorganism. Why it is called microorganism? Until unless you take microscope, you can't see bacteria. Guys, you know bacteria exist everywhere, right? It exists in the air, it exists in the water, it exists on the human skin, on the human surface, on the surface of animals. Guys, just literally you may think that okay, I took bath 2 times in a day, but still any time in a complete day, once you keep your hand or once you keep your skin under microscope, on the human health, on the human skin, you can find million number of microorganisms. You cannot escape nor you cannot run away from microorganisms. Even though you take the bath for throughout the day 100 times, but still after taking 10 times bath also, if you keep your hand or if you keep your skin of any part under microscope, still you can see millions of microorganisms. So, microorganisms are part of our daily life. They take shelter on the human skin. They exist in air, they exist in water, they exist everywhere. But some of these microorganisms, see how wonderful is our nature. Maybe Anton von Leeuwenhoek, there is a scientist who identified these microorganisms. Otherwise, today world may not be known about microorganisms. Just imagine what might be the effort of a scientist in proving that yes, invisible thing exists in nature. Let us go back some 14th century or 15th century, let us go back. In 14th century or in 15th century, world does not know anything. No science, no technology, no much awareness of things what we know today. In 14th century, 15th century, ancient man does not know anything. Imagine if I am the scientist in 14th century, I come and say, oh, you don't know, here invisible organism exists over here, that is called microorganism. Some living organism existing here which you can't see. Then what is the surrounding world will say? Where is that microorganism? Where is that organism exist here? Immediately you say that it is invisible. It is not visible to the naked eye. Do you think world will believe what you say? Surrounding people will believe what you say? Definitely no. First of all, in proving visible component exists here with the texture composition, it is so difficult. And if scientist comes and says, here not only the plain board, here something exists, a living organism, they will ask, where is it? Show. He cannot show, he says invisible. Does you think surrounding people will listen and they will agree? Definitely they will think that the scientist who is talking about this definitely mad, because at that time they do not know microscope and they do not know anything. So definitely he is saying there is nothing here, but he is saying some living organism existing. Definitely the scientist is mad. Earlier, our ancient great scientists were treated as mad just because of lack of science and technology. So, necessity makes the inventions. When Anton von Leeuwenhoek, such a great scientist, I hope you are understanding what I am speaking. Anton von Leeuwenhoek, such a great scientist, when he said that some living organisms are existing and they are invisible, surrounding people and the world is not accepted. So necessity makes the inventions. Then Anton von Leeuwenhoek started thinking how to prove this, how to prove that invisible thing is existing and that is living. How to prove that? Then he thought for months together, years together. Then he is the first person who invented, who designed the first light microscope. With the help of light illumination, he designed and constructed, invented, discovered such a great wonderful thing. It's called microscope. The first light microscope. Why do we call light microscope? It functions with the help of light. By taking the illumination of the light, he prepared the lens and he designed microscope. With the help of microscope, when he saw, he could able to see the beautiful and different shape of microorganisms. And when he showed to the world, when he showed to the surrounding people, and surrounding people agreed that yes, there are some living organisms exist in nature, but they are invisible to the human naked eye, but they exist in nature, so they are called microorganisms. See that what might be the great effort of the scientist in those days, proving that something exists here, but that is invisible. Really hats off to all the great scientists who has done such a great effort. Today we are comfortably sitting and taking out the textbook, in that everything is being discovered, already it's been invented, and how it is invented, how it is done, everything we know, name called science and technology. Comfortably sitting at one corner and we are reading, and so far what the information got already revealed. But when nothing is known to the world at 14th or 15th century, it's really great effort of the scientist in the invention of microorganisms. Guys, I think you know microorganisms. What are they? Which can be visible only in microscope, which cannot be visualized with human naked eye. So what are they? Can you tell me which are the microorganisms we know? Bacteria, fungi, algae. Yes or no? Lichens or lichens we call. Right, virus. Today the world got affected with corona. It's virus, it's an invisible organism. Yes or no? Virus outside the host, it is non-living. When it comes inside the host, when it comes inside the living organism, then it becomes active, it shows what it is. Okay, so here those all will come under what? Microorganisms. First of all, it's very difficult for them to trace which microorganism is causing disease, how it is causing, what are the symptoms, what is the solution, what is the antibiotic, what is the medicine to be, it need to be discovered. So, such a great wonder things, we have so many interesting things to talk about microorganisms. Anyway, let's come back to this. So, what I am talking here are microorganisms. So, who is the microorganism we are speaking about? Rhizobium. Let us revise it once again, because this is important, because this part also will continue in second year also. Okay guys, I will repeat again. Listen and concentrate. Okay. So, here in Fabaceae members you find root system. Root system contain root nodules. Root nodules will give shelter to whom? Rhizobium. It's a bacteria. Both are mutually, they maintain a mutual relationship. It's called symbiotic association. What is symbiotic association? Both are mutually benefited. How they are beneficial to each other? Root nodule is the one who gives shelter, water, food and nutrients to rhizobium. It's a bacteria. In return, what bacteria will do? In return, what rhizobium will do? It has a wonderful mechanism called nitrogen fixation. It will convert atmospheric nitrogen into nitrite, nitrate or ammonia. It will give nitrite, nitrate, ammonia to the root nodule. Root nodule will give to the root and root will give to the shoot system. Then that involved in giving plant growth. The plant will grow vigorously. It grow at a higher rate and it gives more yield. More yield means if it is a beans plant, you will get more beans. If it is a groundnut, you will get more groundnut. Right. So, such type of special type of root nodules here what we find are called as what? Nodular roots. Right. Now, let us continue with the next category. First one is storage root. Second one is nodular root. Let us go with the third one. What is the third one? Respiratory roots, or also called as breathing roots. Respiratory roots are also called as what? Breathing roots. So here what are respiratory roots, what are breathing roots here? In this case if you look at, let me give you definition. Here they are aerial roots. Generally where roots will grow into the depth of the soil. But in this case roots are aerial. Aerial means above to the level of soil. They are aerial, right, and they are negatively geotrophic. They are negatively geotrophic. Why do you call negatively geotrophic? See here I am drawing the plant, for example respiratory plant if you take, I am just drawing here, listen and concentrate. So what are we drawing here? If this is a plant, this is a plant what's growing here. Now generally roots will grow, this is down to the soil, generally roots will go down to the soil, but in this case where roots becomes aerial, they come out. They grow here above soil. Who will grow above soil? Roots are found above to the soil level. This is soil. This is soil. Above to the soil. So they are called aerial. Then what is meant by negatively geotrophic? What's the meaning of negatively geotrophic? Means here generally if the root grows down, that is towards gravity, the root will grow towards gravity into the deeper and deeper layers of the soil, that is called positive geotrophic. But here root is not going down, no, the root is growing where? On the upper side. So this is not towards gravity. So for our understanding this is called negatively geotrophic. Geo means soil, trophic means movement or growth of the root, negative means against gravity, that means not within the soil, above to the soil. So here roots are aerial, aerial means above soil. So here and these negatively geotrophic roots involved in exchange of gases, involved in exchange of gases. Which gases they will get exchange here? You know it very well, they are nothing but oxygen and carbon dioxide. Right guys, that is why they are called, whenever something is involved in exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So taking carbon dioxide, releasing the oxygen. Generally plants do what? What do we get from plants? Oxygen. So how plants are involved in exchange of gases? They take the carbon dioxide and they release out oxygen, and we take that oxygen. We are human beings, animals, we take the oxygen, we release carbon dioxide. See, nature is so beautiful. See how the nature is balancing the thing. I am animal, I am the human being, here is a plant. So how nature is balancing both of us. I am the living organism, I have to survive. Even plant is a living organism, it has to survive. But what I need is, so what we are discussing, here plant is existing, I am called human being is existing. See the wonderful part of the nature, what nature is doing is, I want oxygen. Plant is also living organism, but plant don't need oxygen, plant need carbon dioxide. So what do I do now? We both mutually exchange. Human beings, animals, they will be balanced with plant. So nature is so beautiful thing. Nature support, nature regulates, nature controls each and every process whatever it is going to take place. Nature is the most creation of the God. Nature balances everything. Nature supports everything. Nature regulates, controls everything. So how nicely it is balancing. Look at here, I want oxygen. So plant what it will tell? I will give you oxygen. So I will take oxygen as a human being. What I will give? I will give carbon dioxide. So if no plants, all carbon dioxide will get accumulated in the atmosphere. That may lead to global warming, rise of temperature. That should not happen. So what plant is telling? Don't worry, I will take carbon dioxide. So nature is a beautiful and fantastic resource in balancing all the processes, in controlling, regulating, in connecting, coordinating all processes, and to take a big balance. Nature is the biggest resource on earth. Okay, so here what are we discussing? As per the need, nature has done some modifications. To whom? To the root system. So we are talking about taproot modifications, right? Where are we? Third one, respiratory or breathing roots. Now in this case, what is the function of respiratory roots? They involve in exchange of gases. They are aerial, negatively geotrophic. That's why they are called respiratory roots. As there is an exchange of gases taking place, that's why they are also called breathing roots. Not in all plants, in very few plants have respiratory or breathing roots. Now let us study this part here. Now if you take respiratory roots, I am talking about. Now let us take, this is a plant. This is a plant what we have. Now what do we find here? We find aerial roots. Okay, few roots are down, but most of the roots we find aerially. So these are the aerial roots. So these are the aerial roots. These are the aerial roots. So here aerial root. Right. So here when it is an aerial root, on the surface of the aerial root, we find a minute pores, a minute openings. On the aerial root, when you observe under microscope, on this aerial root, you find minute openings. These are called pneumatodes. These are called as what? Pneumatodes. What are these pneumatodes? They are nothing but a minute pores. What are they? They are called a minute pores. Minute means very small, tiny. Pores means they are openings. So you find some minute pores. These minute pores are called as what? They are called pneumatodes. They are called as what? Pneumatodes. So what is the purpose of this, having these openings, these small openings, these minute pores called pneumatodes? They involved in exchange of gases. So here oxygen is released out and carbon dioxide is taken. Exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide is taken with the help of an openings called pneumatodes. P. It is nothing but what? Pneumatodes. What are pneumatodes? A small minute openings are called as pneumatodes. So they involve in exchange of gases. That's why they are called respiratory, or we call breathing roots. They are aerial because this is nothing but soil. They are present above to the soil. That's why they are called aerial, and they are negatively geotrophic. The best example for this is nothing but mangroves. What is the best example for this? Mangroves. What are mangroves? Mangroves are the one which grow in waterlogged areas. Waterlogged areas. And these are the areas where generally they contain high saline condition. They grow in high saline conditions. What are mangroves? Mangroves grow in, where do you find them? Mangroves are the plants, generally they grow in waterlogged areas. What are waterlogged areas? Generally, you know, when a lake or river or when a pond is there, surrounding to the pond you find waterlogged area, means marshy area, means wet is there, moisture content will be there, full of water, and waterlogged area, right? Beside, in coastal regions, generally in coastal areas of lakes, in coastal regions of the oceans, you find more water and it is like muddy, right? Waterlogged areas. At that place you find generally high salt concentration. Saline means what? Salt. So generally this is a place where it contains high salt concentration in highly saline conditions. So mangroves are the plants which grow in waterlogged areas and in highly saline conditions. These are the plants, as they find in case of highly saline soils, high salted soils, they cannot respire properly. The root what is growing inside cannot respire properly. So it makes its own modification. See how nature is doing the best part here. It itself, the root itself will modify. Instead of going down, root comes aerial and it forms some openings. As per its need, it forms some openings called nematodes, in which gaseous exchange takes place so that roots can respire, they can grow, right. Similarly, you can take some more examples like Rhizopora and Avicennia. So these two are also very good example. Guys, I am telling you, remember this Rhizopora, questions will come on this. Why? Because Rhizopora contain two types of root system, dimorphic, two types of root system. We will discuss about this again, but very important example. Mostly questions will come on Rhizopora. We will discuss about Rhizopora in coming classes, okay, and Avicennia. And also take one more example, Jussea. Jussea is a free floating plant. Jussea is a free floating plant. Why especially we are writing free floating plant? It is a hydrophyte. Rest to grow in the coastal area. Coastal areas of water. Who? Rhizopora, Avicennia, generally they grow in coastal areas, in waterlogged areas. Whereas Jussea, it is a free floating plant, it is a free floating hydrophyte. It floats on the surface of water, but still it contains respiratory roots or breathing roots. I hope it is very clear. Examples are important. Now, the next one is, the fourth one is buttress roots, or we call plank roots. Buttress roots, or what we call plank roots. What are these type of roots here? A modified taproot, grow horizontally, grow into horizontally stouted roots and provide mechanical support, Such type of roots are called buttress roots. What's the meaning of this? Modified taproot develops into, grow into, or aerial, you can write here, all this is also aerial because it grows outside the soil, grows into, develops into, aerial, or better you write down develops into, that is a good meaning it has, easy to remember, develops into, modified taproot develops into, aerial means it comes out of the soil, horizontally stouted roots, it grows horizontally, stouted roots, and what purpose it's coming out aerially? To provide mechanical support So the best example for this is nothing but ficus. And giving you one more scientific name, Ficus religiosa. Ficus is a scientific name for banyan tree. Ficus is a scientific name for banyan tree. So you know what happens in case of banyan tree if you look at, so this is a banyan tree, huge plant. Generally it is a banyan tree is a huge plant. So what happens here? Some of the roots, when you observe roots penetrate inside as well as on, they will come aerially, very thick and horizontally growing roots. They will grow like this. They penetrates into the soil also. So these horizontally growing. So this is soil. If you can't visible here, just I am writing here, this is soil. So what happens here? They grow aerially, they come out and they grow aerially and they grow horizontally. They grow horizontally and they are aerial. Aerial means above to the soil and they are very thick. Very thick means very strong. Very stouted. Stouted means very thick. Horizontal means what? Parallel to the soil. Right, and what for purpose they will grow like this? To provide mechanical support. Such type of roots are called buttress roots. In that is example is what? Ficus is a banyan tree. Guys remember, banyan tree also contain two types of roots. We will discuss about banyan again. Banyan also contain two types of roots. Such kind of two types of containing roots Plants are very, very, very important. What did I told you to remember here? In this case, Rhizopara. It contains 2 types of roots. We will discuss coming classes. Banyan tree also contain 2 types of roots. What are these called as? Buttress roots. What do? They give mechanical support. How they are present? They are present aerially, horizontally, very strong and stouted roots called as buttress roots. I hope all 4 categories are clear. What are they? What are taproot modifications? The first one is storage roots. Second one is nodular roots. Third one is respiratory roots or breathing roots. And the fourth one is buttress roots. So, these are nothing but taproot modifications. What is the next thing we have to start? Next thing we have to start is what? Adventitious roots. We have to start with adventitious root modifications. What we completed now? Taproot modifications. All 4 will come under taproot modifications. With what we have to continue? Adventitious root modifications. Little is there, sir.